In times of good episodes some fall silent. We do not. The morality of a spy thriller leads these jerks to argue what DS9 has been selling this whole time. Hard recap, hard retrospective. It's time for the rules of acquisition.
All right. Hello and welcome to the Rules of Acquisition, a podcast where we are going through every episode, every single one of Star Trek Deep Space Nine, the greatest spy show that's also Star Trek, I guess. My name is Wade Bowen, and with me, as always, is James Nolan.
Hey!
And Hugh Crawford.
Hey!
And, yeah, we are talking about an episode this time called Enter Arma something something blah blah blah.
Yes. Yeah, this is Enter Arma something something blah blah blah. It originally aired March 3rd, 1999. It is episode 16 of season 7, and here is the IMDb description. While making plans to attend a medical conference on the Romulan homeworld, Dr. Bashir is contacted by Sloan of Section 31 and recruited to determine the health of a high-ranking Romulan.
Yeah. So now I'm like, I gotta figure out what the name of this episode actually was.
Things turn more desperate, though, when the ranking Starfleet admiral traveling with him, who knows about Section 31's interest in the conference, mysteriously suffers a brain aneurysm after Dr. Bashir finds out that Sloan is traveling with the group as well. That's one hell of a movie synopsis.
In detail.
Yeah, like they were like they got the synopsis and then started trying to bend and just laying out more details they didn't need for a quick synopsis. Mm-hmm. It's fine.
This episode is a Section 31 episode. Is this our second or third one?
It's our second.
One.
It's Section 31 and Julian Bashir story arc as defined by Memory Alpha.
Okay.
So it's the second, yeah.
This is like Tinker Tailor Spy type stuff, right?
It's specifically the plot from the spy who came in from the cold.
Okay.
You're right. They're not doing Star
both
Trek
Jean le
here.
Carre.
Right.
No, yeah.
That's what I was thinking. Yes.
Yeah.
So you're picking up what I'm putting down. Mm-hmm. This is not a Star Trek episode. This is another case of Star Trek wanting to do something other than Star Trek.
Okay. Yes. See, yeah, I mean, and specifically, we're going to do this other story that just crib it and put it in Star Trek, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's very similar where the lead feels that he's got to protect a nice guy and get out a bad guy, Eastern German, but it turns out that he's really there to protect the bad East German because he's really a secret spy for the for the spy side.
Right.
So yeah.
Right. Spoiler for a 50-year-old book or whatever.
Yeah.
I haven't read a lot of Jean le Carre novels, so
I haven't read any. I'm not interested in like Cold War machismo type stuff
so I can't say like how what a downer it is for me that it just was that story I already know. The story that they told here, I thought they did an okay job telling it, even if they were just cribbing from some spy novel. Like, I mean, you can say, oh, it's not Star Trek. Section 31, they're going against Star Trek values and it's bullshit or whatever. But, I mean, you can say that.
I can't say that?
No, I'm saying what people might on the internet, detractors might say. I'm not trying to put words into your mouth.
Right. Well, I am a detractor. This is nothing that I'm interested in whenever I watch a Star Trek show.
Right. I like it when they try new things. I thought they did an okay job with this episode, but
I end up having a lot of questions about I like in a lot of these episodes. This is one of them where I'm constantly trying to figure out what is the moral position from DS9. Like, how do they view? When they get to these questions, it seems like they're always pushing into these dark pragmatism sort of stances, and this is just one of the questions where, like, I felt like it was the most muddled of what they're trying to say.
See, I feel like we just have different tastes. Like, I didn't feel like they were trying to sell anything muddled. They're just exploring these questions in these gray areas that don't have. So they're not coming out saying, this is totally wrong and fucked up.
But what would you say is the moral position for DS9?
Oh man, my moral position is it's 5 o'clock on Friday and we need to bang out this script. Like, that's the thing I've coming away from this. Like,
well, I mean,
I don't think that this show has an overarching point of view other than they have like yips and tendencies that they go to.
It's the same moral argument that I've been saying since the beginning, that the show has done differently than other Star Trek, I think. Like, whereas, TNG was all about this idealism and optimism, and like, if we can appeal to our better angels, and that's going to work out for us in the well, and things will be great as long as we are true of heart and trying and acting accordingly. Whereas DS9 says the world is more complicated. The rest of the world isn't going to act with your Federation ideals. And how do you navigate a world that doesn't agree with you, that if we just all acted like Boy Scouts?
I think you're completely misreading the Star Trek Next Generation point of view, because the most famous thing that Picard ever said in that was that you could do everything right and still lose. That's not weakness. That's life. So that's not be true of heart and everything will turn out okay.
Which quote is that from? I can't remember.
That's from the Data episode where they're having the trial whether or not he's sentient or not.
Yeah.
So that's not a sentiment that Star Trek.
I mean, my point of like DS9 is like the world is full of gray areas, and how do you navigate it? This is the point I've made since.
But where do you come? But like it's exploring the how. But I mean, we're almost at the end game. Where do we feel like it does think where should we go?
It's not. That's like my whole point is like it's not trying to give you the answer. It's saying that you have to kind of. There's no right or wrong. I mean,
moral ambiguity is their standpoint.
Well, yeah, just things aren't clear cut, and then
So, what should be our guiding principles when coming up against moral? I mean, I feel like it has a point of view. I'm just trying to discern it.
Right.
And I don't feel like it does.
Because I mean,
neither one of you. I'm the only one that has a sense that maybe this show has a moral point of view.
I mean, it would be wrapped up in the big speech at the end that Sloan gets to Julian. Like, we actually need people like you that do want to do the right thing.
Federation needs men like you, Doctor. Men of conscience, men of principle. Men who can sleep at night.
Because you're useful idiots for us.
No, but he's not even, it's not like there's that as part of Sloan, but also there's not just the pragmatism. He's like, I know I'm a fallen individual where I'm all about this brutal pragmatism, but I want there to be, the Federation needs men like you.
You're also the reason Section 31 exists. Someone has to protect men like you from a universe that doesn't share your sense of right and wrong.
Thank you for being a decent human being isn't just thank you for being decent so that I can manipulate you, which is also part of it. But
so let's bring that. I mean, that's almost the speech that Colonel Jessup gives in all the whatever. What the fuck am I? That you can't handle the truth. A Few Good Men.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's the speech that Colonel Jessup gives in that movie, and it's obviously in that scene and in that movie, it's clearly rejected. That a crime committed for this vague concept of the good of America or protecting the people. A crime committed in that name is still a crime and should not be done. That you go to jail for that.
Right.
And that you violated a principle, even if you did it for the greater good. It's still, then you're just turning it into a trolley
still
problem.
A garbage move.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, and it seems like I think
the show comes out.
It's a trolley problem. But I just don't know. They keep putting this trolley problem on the show. And I'm not really sure where Ira Stephen Bear or where the show and just the show wants to pull the lever on that.
You're not sure because I don't think that there is there's an official stance of this.
They just like asking the question,
making these stories.
Well, I think at the end of this, Section 31 is still the bad guy. I don't think this pulls any, especially more so than, say, Discovery, which...
Well, Sisko's boss was cool with it.
Yeah, but Sisko's boss is not the good guy at the end of this either. This is
and also, I mean, we should point out that this is very similar to what Sisko did, where kill one person to save millions.
But
that was sort of what was faced with this, with kill Adrian Barbeau, or to save millions, theoretically.
I don't think it's sold as... I personally didn't see it sold as like that was the right move in this. I felt like Bashir is abhorred by that, and I think I was... he was my point of view character to still be
he was
by that.
By it. Yeah. He
was, but
was.
I can't. But that's the thing is, I don't feel.
And then at the very,
I feel that I feel like in the Pale Moonlight, at the end of that episode, which was basically written by Ronald D. Moore, and this is written by Ronald D. Moore, so it's fair to compare. They're the same voice. At the end of In the Pale Moonlight, it comes to this conclusion where you feel that I think that the majority of people watching that feel that Sisko made the right choice, and it was dark pragmatism. And in this, I mean, Ross and Sloan both are preaching the same dark pragmatism that Sisko did, that I felt like the episode was approving of here, and then having sort of having Bashir make a Jim face at it. I'm kind of muddled by the morality of it.
I'm not as much like, and this is a different episode than in the Pale Moonlight. That was Sisko was the point of view character, and you kind of go with that. And at the end of this, Bashir was the point of view character in this, where he's abhorred by it, and Admiral Ross is not in the right at the end of it.
Okay, but if we follow the point of view character...
But I'm following the point of view character, and then at the end of it, Admiral Ross is still not the guy in the right, and Sloan's not in the right, and Julian is the good person, the decent human being who is the point of view I agree with. But then at the very end, Sloan says, we needed a good person like you who can sleep good at night, being the good human being. But at the very end of it, he's not sleeping well. So it's a little bit tense. So he's not sure about it. But at the same time, the whole point is that he shouldn't be sleeping well about it. So
he's saying that, we need goody two shoes.
It's not just goody two shoes. I don't think we need men of good moral character like you. I don't think it's like a pejorative.
So that we can run around and have bad moral character, which the realm needs for the good of the realm.
We're running around with our bad moral character because we believe in you.
But I'm just saying that the same show is giving you these opposite sort of messages. And
there's two different episodes. They can give you two different...
Okay.
I know it's like, I'm not trying to cut you off, but I'm just trying to get my point out. Yeah, I mean, it's two different... It is written by the same guy. And I agree that it might be a little bit different than that other episode, but this episode I felt like was doing something slightly different.
Yeah, I feel like from episode to episode with these characters, they do whatever they want. Like, I don't feel like there's a unifying point of view or, something they're trying to get across as together as a team of writers. Star Trek Deep Space Nine feels the most disjointed out of all of them, of all the Star Treks almost. Or as, if you take
from a morality perspective.
Right, from a morality's perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily...
I don't think they have like a set parameters for their morality that they're trying to like navigate us through as an audience.
Yeah, I might agree with you, but other ones like Voyager and Enterprise...
I think they try to get within the framework of each episode. They're just trying to get their stories told. I don't feel like...
Right, well, like all the other ones... I feel like the other series just have that kind of default Star Trek thing that they can say vague and just be speaking platitudes and not worry about it because we're Star Trek and we're just talking about Star Trek things. Whereas DS9 is trying to do more things, and so you might be right that it's not quite as solid with what it's saying.
Do you feel differently, James, about Deep Space Nine? Do you feel like they have something that they're trying to tell us?
It makes me wonder... Did I, and this is maybe self-reflective, but maybe what did really gravitated to me and spoke with me the first time I watched DS9, I was a younger man, and at that time I maybe thought that shows that had moral ambiguity were somehow bigger-headed or more like artistically adventurous than shows that have like a consistent moral view.
I definitely think that
I think we associate a consistent moral view with like school
or hold handing the audience's hand.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I think that when you see things that are morally ambiguous, I mean, you think about all the sort of things that teens like, or, sort of edgy, sort of edgy movie teens and stuff like that. We all sort of these grayer worlds. And I wonder if like DS9 gets by on a lot of capital for that. And me just at 40, at where I'm at in my life, I just put less of a value on that because I really want to know what a work is saying. Like, it's really important to me, like a work in total. And so now it frustrates me because it's not like they have a point of view. They're subverting a point of view that you've come to expect from Star Trek and sort of maybe riding on that capital instead of having something to say. And that's what I'm starting to kind of wonder. Does it?
Oh, I definitely agree. I think that sometimes moral ambiguity in storytelling could be like Ashton Kutcher playing Steve Jobs.
Yeah,
they're putting on smart face. Is that what that's called?
Yes.
I think I definitely get that.
Yeah, I feel like maybe we've some ways swapped positions from when we started this podcast.
Oh yeah,
like I'm like, yeah, it's no more. Like, I feel like y'all were more arguing for this nuance, and I was like, oh no, I'm here for the Star Trek idealism, and now I'm like, I'm here for the not idealism and just exploring the human darkness or blah 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 or whatever. Mm-hmm. And you're like, no, where's my fucking idealism? This is Star Trek, and I'm like, well, this is doing something,
right.
And I want to be clear, I don't want to like the moral ambiguity stuff, and that wouldn't be the problem if I felt they were leading to it. Like, it doesn't even, I'm not like, okay, I'm not saying that it has to be like, Marx was right. I'm saying that I don't even know if it's moving to a more nuanced theme. I don't even know the theme of it. And
these episodes feel like karaoke. I think that's a problem.
Right.
That's another. But when you take these big swings at moral questions like this, when you take these attacks that are showing you, I mean, what they're doing is going through, I mean, they said The Spy Came In From the Cold is a Cold War novel. You start dissecting these, what we all assumed in the 90s were mistakes of the Cold War, and you start sort of making a case for them like they do here. I mean, because in the Pale Moonlight is very much like the Gulf of Tonkin, which, as we're recording this today, our government is actually trying to do with Iran, like tonight, by fabricating some bullshit. But that's like what Sisko did, and it made sort of a defense of that Gulf of Tonkin, and this makes a defense of these sort of killing good reformers to prop up bad actors because that helps our interests. That kind of stuff, and it's giving a case and a voice to that, and that's fine if you think that some of the excesses of the Cold War were necessary for peace, Ira Stephen Bear or Ronald D. Moore. Maybe I feel like at some point you need to start making that point clearer. But if you're just like, wouldn't it be edgy if we made a defense of the Gulf of Tonkin or something like that, then
I don't think the show is doing that. I just
think they think Jean le Carre's cool. I don't think they're thinking of that.
Probably, I think there's truth in Jean le Carre novels that they're exploring. Probably.
I don't know. I don't think so.
I don't know. I mean, in this story,
I don't think they're hunting specific truths. I think they're just doing a cover song.
Mm-hmm. Sure, but I mean, there could be something in that cover song that is actually reflecting actual things instead of just being totally gibberish.
It's like if I went to the bar and I started singing "Don't Let Me Down," but I'm not really feeling like want somebody to don't let me down like the original does. Like I think something's lost when you do a cover song.
But you don't know. We all admitted we're not terribly familiar with those Jean le Carre books.
I mean, I'm going off with all the other covers that I am familiar with. All the westerns, all the Godfather stuff. Like,
right. Well, I'm just talking about this episode, and I thought it was actually I thought it was a good episode.
Well,
yeah, I mean, I thought it was well written, and I think that Sloan, what's his fucking name?
William Sadler.
I love that actor. William Sadler. I think he's great. I love Adrienne Barbeau. Big Swamp Thing fan from when I was a kid. That was a formative.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, like, I think it's well performed. I don't think it didn't make me want to fucking die. Like, maybe some episodes did.
Right.
Some of these cover episodes. and that it was more competent on that level, but I'm still it is just, it isn't uniquely Star Trek, so we can't give them points on originality, and it is familiar, but I also I wish there was a clearer statement to where that is.
I still think it's pretty clear that Bashir is the point of view character and that those guys are making...
But it's, okay, but I'm saying not what does Bashir think, what does the show think about what transpired?
I think the show thinks...
that it was bad?
That it was bad because,
It's the same thing that happened in Pale Moonlight.
It's two different...
Do you think... No,
that gets to my point.
No, I'm saying, do you think the show was on the side of what Sisko did in the Pale Moonlight?
Yes.
I think it was too. So shouldn't I, as a critic of the show, try to pursue what the show is saying from these two opposites? It's not even that different because they're both written by the same guy.
But they're different situations written by the same guy, but the author comes to a different conclusion.
So you find me wanting to square that circle irritating, but I want to square that circle.
No, but you're saying that they're 1-to-1 ratios. This isn't like
They're comparable as comparative criticism usually is.
They are, but the situation that this says is wrong in this is not like we're going to die and lose this war if we don't bring the Romulans in. This is
Why not?
I think they're both...
Because this is a different situation.
The head of the Tal Shiar of the Roman Empire is a stooge of the of the Federation.
It's a different situation because this isn't about winning this war. This is like setting up for the next one.
So you feel that this show is advocating for a purely situationalist moral ethic?
No, this situation is treated differently and comes to a different conclusion about this different situation than the situation in the Pale Moonlight.
And there's no overarching moral ethic that guides the show, just whatever the situation dictates.
You mean overarching over the series, right? He's talking about the series, though, from episode to episode, right?
Yeah.
Right.
I'm trying to figure out what DS9 has to say about ethics.
Ethics.
Right.
Ethics. I'm not afraid to use the word.
Ethics.
Skinned away, you can't even trust a fix.
Right. And what I'm telling you is I think they just like kick it around to get to the end of the episode when they're writing it, and I don't think that they care about an overarching.
You're probably right.
I really don't feel like don't.
I mean, that's what I was getting at before. I feel like they're more interested in exploring this stuff than other Star Trek. Maybe not as like TNG had its own theories, but then after that, Voyager and Enterprise, they're like, oh, let's get back to whatever the TNG thesis is. And then Voyager kind of waters it down and muddies it up. And then by Discovery, they're just like, well, platitudes, because we believe it's Starfleet, because it's good.
Voyager actually puts up Federation ideal. Like, are you still the Federation when nobody's looking? That's its moral thing. So,
right.
Like, who are you when nobody's looking is what Voyager is about to a certain extent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So if you're a Federation or if you're a Maquis and you're cut off from your organization's values, then who are you?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, that show actually did have a
right, and it's made to match up with what TNG is doing, and then DS9 is in the war show saying when your whole civilization is faced with this existential crisis of like, this is your civilization and ideals are going to be wiped out. What do you do in the face of that? And then that's where they get exploring this kind of spy politics and stuff.
And I would assume that at some point by the end, I didn't watch Voyager, but I assume at some point in Voyager you do feel it sort of answered that statement about these people, at least. That's what what your space friends were all about. And so I'm starting, we're 10 episodes away, man. We're getting towards the end. And so I'm starting to put out the feelers of what this show has. You're right that what you have to do to survive when your back is against the wall, like the things you have to do when your back's against the wall, seems to be about what DS9 is really exploring. And I'm trying to sort of feel what it has to say, because it do you save yourself through a strong rectitude to your moral ethic, which I think TNG definitely was.
Right.
And this, I'm like wondering, is about having some bend and give about your moral ethic. But once you say that, and that can be a perfectly fine thing and I think it probably is what the DS9 is saying. Once you say that, then it puts the onus on, well, what's too much?
Right. And
it's the next question when you're arguing these kind of shades of gray. And there, I just don't know what they have to say.
And I think what this episode is exploring that question exactly, like what you're saying. I think what this episode kind of posits differently than in the Pale Moonlight. Like in the Pale Moonlight is our backs were against the wall, faced with annihilation. Unless I did this, and it's kind of we're going to agree, it might have been the right choice. Where this one is Bashir, our point of view character, is supported by it because he points out in the episode, it's not, wait a minute, this isn't because our backs are against the wall and we're faced with annihilation if we don't finagle to get Adrian Barbeau murdered. He's like, wait a minute, you're not even doing this to save us right now. You're using this as praxis going forward, and you're thinking not about this war, but the next war, with the assumption that we're just going to fight in an endless war after this, whereas our whole ideals of Starfleet is supposed to be what keeps us from getting into these kind of conflicts. And this kind of idealism that is what makes us better than we used to be as humanity. And now with Section 31, the bad guy still of this dark kind of cancer on the show is that if we go your ways, then we're not thinking about how do we avoid wars. We're thinking about how do we win the next one. And I think the show
I don't even know if I agree that that's the theme of this episode.
But he literally says that.
No, I know that.
He literally says that in this episode.
This war isn't over. And you're already planning for the next.
I know that.
Well put.
I think the episode thinks Sloan and Ross are right.
I don't think... I actually had Wade's reading on this when I watched it.
Uh-huh.
That these two people were... Like, one guy is somebody who acts... like on the wrong side, Sloan.
Mm-hmm.
One guy acts in the middle gray area, Admiral Ham Sandwich, by like being
right,
and then one guy is on the right side of the argument, which is our man Bashir, because he can't sleep at night and he's a good man. So I thought that's the spectrum, and then we have three characters on it.
Right, and also with that spectrum that you're talking about, just right there, Sloan is the guy who is the corrupted bad guy that is arguing for that.
Right.
You know, Ross is a good guy. He means well. He has Federation principles in mind, but he also is kind of corrupted by that kind of thought.
I don't like it, but I've spent the last year and a half of my life ordering young men and young women to die. I like that even less.
And then Bashir is the one that sees through it and says,
right,
no, we can't be like that. He's the good man. But then at the end of it, he's like, but wait, is this what we have to do?
We will get a chance to revisit this conversation. So,
like, I don't, yeah, but I thought that was the last scene that we kind of talked about. I think this is the first time in a long time that Wade and I have had the exact same reading on the scene, I think.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm saying that I didn't.
But, like, it was pretty spot on where he talks about how he says we need guys they're so good that they can sleep at night, and then he can't sleep at night because he's like, what have I been a party to? You know, I think that's them.
But on the other hand, it is contrasted with the Sisko being the same way.
But James, how these shows are written and made, it could just be a director's note at the end where it's like, oh, what if my character doesn't actually get to sleep?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's great. All right, let's break for lunch.
That's true.
I mean,
you're right that it could be.
I don't put a whole lot of.
And I do think that it is interesting because this is the last episode before the 10-episode big fucking story arc, which Sloan and Section 31 plays a huge part in.
I don't think you're wrong for trying to find a through line, though.
Yeah,
but I think trying to find a through line to I mean, a lot. What I've learned on this rewatch is a lot of this. There's a lot of fat on the bone. There's a lot of stuff that these guys, they weren't interested in doing Star Trek all the time. They'd much rather do something else in space. Bridge over the River Kwai in space, All Quiet on the Western Front in space. Godfather Part 2 in space. I mean, they just wanted to do karaoke songs for syndicated TV. It wasn't...
Well, I think maybe Bear wanted to do karaoke songs on TV.
And he ran the show. It was his show.
But Ronald D. Moore comes as, going forward, doing Battlestar, was like saying, I wanted to do stories on Star Trek that Star Trek wouldn't let me do. And he got to do more of that in DS9 than he did in Voyager and Decipher going forward.
That's why Caprica failed, is because Ronald D. Moore went hard into the paint with serialization. What people liked about Battlestar Galactica is that one episode ended, you immediately had to start the next one because of how it was paced.
Yes.
That's what people liked about the show. Nobody cared about the world of which it was set in. People liked the storytelling mode of serialization that Ronald D. Moore went hard for. But
Ronald D. Moore wanted to do stuff that he couldn't do.
I understand that, and I totally I'm agreeing with you. I think
even your point. Even if it has a dark ambiguity, I'm just afraid at the end I'm afraid if I ask this question, what is the moral point of view of the show? I'm afraid that at the end of it, it'll be the Federation ideals were the friends we made along the way. It's about family and it's about coming together as a team. I don't know. You know what I mean? I'm afraid that it's pretty empty. But, and I want it to be a little bit. What?
That's Discovery.
Yeah, and I'm afraid that this will be afflicted with that too.
Yeah.
For all of its darkness and all of the sort of breaking with, which I agree is a interesting. That's a card to play that isn't an empty card. It isn't a dumb card to play. It's pretty cool if you're all sort of leading, even if it does have this sort of dark I think it is a dark I think that Sisko is a dark pragmatic character, and theoretically he's the lead of the show. So you would think that would be the moral sort of framework of the show.
There are 173 Star Trek Deep Space Nine episodes. Mm-hmm. I mean, 10 of them showcase maybe that
dark pragmatic,
these moral questions? Yeah, maybe 10 of them do.
That's true. Yeah.
Out of 173, I mean...
Right. Yeah, they spend a lot of time trying to figure out what they're doing, And, talking about Sisko being that, they do we've talked enough, we don't need to break the show down, but they do a boardroom at, let's talk about how the war's going scene, and Sisko's not even in it. It's with, it's with Kira leading it, and Adrienne Barbeau, who is Kretak now, who was another actor before.
Yes.
Right. But it's all Colonel Kira leading the meeting with Admiral and the Romulans. And then it's not until Bashir goes in later and says, hey, boss, can I go to this conference? I got contacted by Sloan. And that Sisko's like, yes, you're going to be my agent. And turns out that Admiral Ham Sandwich was in on it the whole time. People talk up that finally Admiral Ross is finally a good admiral in Star Trek, and I posit that this episode says, wait a second, he's kind of good, but nope. This is where I throw a flag and say, nope, they're all corrupt. But that's a matter of opinion.
And I don't know, but and I don't. Yes, the bad admirals thing is a continuing sort of makes me wonder about the. I don't know. They really struggled to. I mean, we talked early on about the problem as Roddenberry set up to TNG was that they really couldn't argue amongst themselves, so it was really devoid of. It was hard to find conflict in the stories, and so you had to struggle, and so they sort of broke that on this show, and found themselves having, to some degree, having a lot of sort of personal struggles, and were able to sort of do these darker shows. I mean, a lot of it was, you think of a show like Duet, which is probably the first heavy episode they did, morally heavy episode. But it was sort of looking at a Nazi officer in full with their guilt and sort of exploring their guilt. And ultimately you end up feeling sympathetic for the guy and his guilt, but not that it's unfounded or undeserved. So it's just sort of looking deeper into character, but the moral framework is sort of sound. It really isn't until, it really is the Pale Moonlight that really does do a sharp break and introduce this, sometimes the tough call has to be made. You know, at some time there is a trolley problem, and you do have to pick which way
it's
the track
interesting
goes.
to me that you've picked. I mean, these are the best episodes. These are you've mentioned like 3 episodes to be the representation viewpoint of the whole series.
Yeah,
and I really don't feel that way. I feel like there are 6 episodes, and that if you could pick, you could pick some really dumb episodes and say that was what Star Trek was really about.
Yeah.
Right. I think there's little themes in it that set it up a little bit earlier. There's probably 6 episodes that are just about that, but there's thematic elements in the show that bring up like the Cardassians, post-occupiers, like, and there's good ones and there's bad ones. You know, that kind of shade of gray elements. Kira being a terrorist, and Ducat's kind of, though in later seasons he just kind of flips to a bad guy, you know, where so it you know, it's not just all like, oh, at time it suddenly flips to being about these gray issues in the Pale
And
Moonlight.
really issues are dealt with in TNG too. Like there's good Romulans in the Leonard Nimoy story arc, and there's, you know, you think of Rolaren as a terrorist,
and then Bajoran politics.
I mean, they are sort of extenuating it. It's that break that, I mean, you're right. Hugh's thesis, he could very well be right, that they just kind of fucked up and had these dark breaks almost on accident, and they don't hold water from a viewpoint perspective. And that'd be disappointing if that's true, but it probably is.
I don't think it's. I mean, I think they struggled for 2 seasons to figure it out what they were doing, who doing it all. They're honking on old TNG scripts.
No, I'm saying at the
but
end.
I think they start to.
I'm saying in all
fill
the
out
end.
something.
They completely lose their way, Wade.
Yeah.
I think that.
Oh, there's definitely some meandering.
I mean, like last season was a unmitigated disaster.
Well, I had differing opinions on a lot of those episodes.
Okay, well, just within the framework that we're talking about with these episodes, with the through line, it is.
I mean, I saw what they were doing with some of those episodes that y'all hated so much.
No. I'm not talking. I'm not talking about what they were trying to like. I'm talking about with the through line that you guys are talking about. I'm saying James keeps on talking about these great episodes, and there's like 6 of them that have this through line.
They're not only great, but they specifically like have these moral questions that are different than
have a point of view. I understand that.
It seems like they're trying to make a different statement. They're singing a different song than what you normally get, and I just don't know if that song makes sense or, you know, is.
And I say that those are such statistical outliers over the whole.
You think it's accidental, yeah.
I don't think it's accidental. I'm not saying nothing's really on accident. I just don't think.
You're saying that those episodes he's bringing up are anomalous to what the show's
I think that when you look at 172 episodes and we really gush about maybe 10 of them and then maybe 12 just for different reasons, well, we could, you know, that's not that great of a batting average.
I think even in the bad episodes, they're trying to sell stuff that they might not do as well. Like even in that.
No, specifically with what James is saying though.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I could say even in the O'Brien guy who has the cat episode, the noir one, that they're doing stuff.
But that would have been done as TNG.
You know,
that would have been a TNG episode.
Maybe.
I mean, there's no moral break from a philosophy. From a philosophy standpoint, there's no philosophical break from the philosophy in TNG.
Right.
In that episode.
Well, you would have. That's like having Rolaren go over to the Maquis, and then at the end,
that's what he said earlier. Is that?
But at the end of that, you have Picard chewing her out for being wrong. Whereas,
but she was a terrorist already when she came on. So like, it's not like Kira does a bunch of terrorist shit during the show. She just was a terrorist in that situation. So they don't have to answer that moral question.
Right. No,
in fact, I get a little irritated that she doesn't.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah, so I mean, I think this show wants to end up. I do think the show wants to bring up obviously all of the dangling plot lines, but also have a storyline. One of that's about religion and people or something, and then the other, I'm wondering about how we should respond when what do you do when the going gets tough kind of situation.
Right.
And to me, the show seems to be all over the place with regard to that answer, and I hope it comes to a finer point.
Yeah.
As it goes.
Yeah, I don't think TV shows were as good about hitting those one point as hard.
I think you're right. Wait,
I think TNG did.
Well, that's because I'm saying, but yeah, because it's hitting hard on those like
Yes.
Roddenberry ideals, where this is
But
trying
what
to do
is that
something
different? Or
different.
what are they hitting hard on? What are their ideals? Is my question.
Well, I think I spent like 44 minutes.
Well,
at
you
this
just
podcast.
said-
I mean, you
There-
said it was
there-
situational, and that's probably true. But
and it's that dark. That's like when
Yeah.
you're faced.
yeah. So I mean,
whatever.
that may be true. Hugh's right. It may be just in no way or no order at all to it. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
I really
mostly
don't know.
because another through line throughout all of these episodes is a lot of the decision making seems to be very flippant.
It does.
well, that's
Or in the hands of the actors, like the actors have to like go to bat so many times and say, no, why would my character do this? And fight, they're constantly fighting with the creators to have their characters do stuff that makes sense.
right. Well, I mean, Star Trek's been flippant forever about like, oh, the prime directive gets turned on and off as the plot needs to, or as the episode demands it. So
Right.
I
And
mean,
I think that's a
I have
weakness.
problems. I have
So-
problems with that too. Yeah, I would definitely think that if
yeah, but I don't think it's a weakness that other Star Treks don't all have.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I only mean that as an example to how flippant they are
decisions,
towards
yeah.
major stuff that happens in the show.
Yeah, I agree. Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, like they made Julian. They totally revamped his character on like a fly.
Right.
And they introduced a lounge singer as a main character for like
Yeah.
a season and a half. So I'm not just because they like it. It's not because.
Yes,
Yeah,
I know
yeah.
y'all hate Vic.
So I have more of I know how the show feels about 1960s pop culture.
Right.
We know
I-
what movies.
but I don't know the answer.
We know what movies Ira Stephen Bear likes. Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So I'm like, I have a better. This show is showing us who they are.
Yeah.
But I don't think that they're.
It's not going to be coming to a satisfying whole as a sort of an epic story.
Right.
Maybe, yeah, like we're doing a lot of talking about how the show is coming together, and you're not wrong to point out and be confused like by it doing different things. Like, but this episode at least had a pretty thorough throughput and held together.
Yes.
It went out of its way to even tie together past character bits from, he's there at that conference to talk about the quickening from that one episode. One of the first episodes that we liked of Julian, where he was actually doing good doctoring to cure the big, huge quickening herpes virus or whatever.
Yep.
And then when it opened up, I was like, oh shit, it's a spy episode and we're going to have so much Garrick in it. And it's like, oh no, we didn't. No, I was just so happy to see Andrew Robinson up front talking about, he's talking about like how his time on Romulus, which has been mentioned before in his episodes where he's being emo about his dad or whatever. And we learned that when he was a gardener on Romulus, and he won't say what he was doing, but we learned in other episodes he was probably assassinating people.
And writing a whole book there's a whole book about that time.
Oh, right.
So,
yeah.
I would to sort of ask. I mean, they are trying to ask big questions in this episode. The term that the Latin term that's the title, inter arma enim silent leges or leges, it's Cicero, and it's like in times of war, law is silent. But where Ronald E. Moore got the quote from was from a book written by William Rehnquist, the Chief Justice.
Oh boy.
About Lincoln's suspension of habeas corpus at several times during the Civil War. And that's what the book is about, and it's got that title. And like I think that there's an argument to, if you're evoking one of the great sort of moral arguments of like why Lincoln suspended habeas corpus. I mean, that's one of the big sort of legal issues in our history is that event and that time. And I don't know, it would seem like I would have.
Yeah.
It bothers me that they pick such a big sort of thing to get their title from, and then like I feel like it's got a pat basic answer, and I was like, but aren't you wanting to go this deeper? Like, what do you think about what Sloan and Ross said, writer of the show? What do you think? And
Right.
so,
For me,
up at night.
yeah, but is that good?
Yeah. For me, I thought the show showed what they thought about that by bringing up like Julian's whole, like we mentioned before, his whole thing where he's like, we haven't even finished this war and you're figuring out how to fight the next one, that's where the problem lies with that kind of thinking.
But okay, so for one, I think that the Lincoln suspended habeas corpus basically not in 2 times, but in 2 different instances. One of which was he put a bunch of fucking lawmakers and cops from Maryland in prison, and that's because the army couldn't get to the Capitol, so the Capitol was going to fall if the army. So anyway, that was clear cut safety of the nation shit. Right. But the other stuff was that he put a bunch of newspapermen in jail in Ohio who were writing articles convincing soldiers to desert their service.
Ew.
And he put those writers in jail. And his reasoning for that, I think, is a reason. He says the death penalty for the penalty for deserting in the military is death. I'll have to put these guys to death according to the law. And these guys are convincing them to break that law. These guys are accomplices to murder.
Oh, yeah.
And I have to sort of stop it as that, even though it is technically freedom of speech, and this is a time of war. Now, I'm sure William Rehnquist argues that was wrong of Lincoln to do that. It seems like a loaded question, and it seems like I don't know, and it seems to pick that and that quote, and that book as your theme and thesis. I'm kind of like, you're asking these big questions too. Maybe you should, I don't know, have a clear cut answer to it, because I don't think the argument is necessarily one-sided. I think having the head of the Tal Shiar being a stool for the Federation is probably pretty fucking advantageous to the Federation and saves lives. I'm sure it does.
Right.
So,
but then you're sacrificing the principles of what Starfleet.
But you laid out with you're sacrificing the principles to save lives.
Yeah. It's a trolley problem. So,
right. And the Romulan being the big Roman analog, but then when he brings that up, and Bashir, instead of calling the Romulans like Rome, was like, what is this? This is the 24th century, but what is it, like 4th century Rome or whatever it was?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Caesar can do no wrong. Is that what you're saying? And,
but to be honest, I mean, I personally found Bashir's argument in the end facile to the question being asked in a way that I didn't for Pale Moonlight. I'm not even saying that I think that you should be able to kill people for the good of all people. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that I don't think that his answer was overwhelming Ross and Sloane's answers.
No.
So that's what I'm thinking. So I'm like, what does the show think?
I think
so. I don't know.
Yeah. I think it's a food for thought thing where it's like, well, now you were a good man who slept through the night. Now you've got like something, like you've been presented with a problem you don't know the answer to, and it's going to keep you up at night.
Yeah.
Right?
And I'm not demanding that they have an answer. I'm just saying that seems to me the start of a conversation that leads you into the big 10 episode series, where a large part of the war hinges on something that Section 31 did, and the morality of that. So I think it's starting a conversation, and that was what my whole point of bringing this all up was, is like, let's start the count. Where are we at on the more, let's track that now.
Right.
Because I think we're in the end game, and it's starting to it looks like they're wanting to say something, but I don't know what it is.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah. We get Sloan as an entomologist, assistant director of the UFP Department of Cartography, but the Romulans being like, never say die. What the fuck does that mean? It's like, well,
it comes from some lame poem.
I didn't know that saying came from a 19th century poem that was based on the Merchant of Venice. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. Hey, I learned something from this episode.
I'm sure Ronald D. Moore had to go look that up. That was a half a morning in the L.A. library.
Yeah, right.
Or whatever. Silver Lake Library.
Right.
Because I can't imagine that anybody just knows that off the top of their fucking head that isn't employed at a university.
Right. Maybe he learned that in college and it stuck with him, and he's been waiting for a script to put it in.
Yeah, that's one thing. That's a deep cut from college.
The guy has Tuvan syndrome. That's not anything like what Spock's dad had, right?
I think it is what he had.
But it affects Vulcans, Romulans, and Rigelians.
I thought that's what he had.
Yeah, I thought it was what Spock's dad.
That's what Spock's dad had. Yeah.
I wasn't sure. I'm asking because I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Because that made him all emotional or something. Mm-hmm. I don't remember.
I think it's like a Huntington's before.
I'm asking because I don't know.
Vulcula Romulans.
Right. Yeah. They have all sorts. And Rigelians. What are Rigelians, anyways? Are they the big brain ones? No, I don't know.
Because you asked that question and because we don't know the answer, we're going to lose face in front of our audience.
Right. Oh man.
If you didn't ask the question, then we wouldn't lose face.
You didn't ask. You don't know what Regelians are. Oh, you're not true fans.
Hold on.
Y'all aren't even watching the movie.
Regelian, hold on. There's some ugly looking fuckers. They got like crab looking shit on their face.
Okay.
They were in Journey to Babel, TOS, and they're in several episodes.
Okay. I've heard of them before. I just don't. Are they psychic too or something?
I don't know. They look like Native Americans with all fucked up crab shell looking shit on their faces.
Okay.
They don't look Vulcanish really at all.
Okay. They just wanted to throw in another reference.
Mm-hmm.
I get it. Ronald, you know Star Trek inside and out.
Yeah, he does some writing.
Koval was the guy that's on their side that was looking like he hated the Federation, but he's actually a plant. And Kretek.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, no, she's on our side. She's great. She's a patriot. And then Admiral Ross flips that. It's like, yeah, she's a patriot, so she'll fuck us if it's in the interest of their Romulans. So that's why we had to get rid of her. And he's like, but she was a good woman. So, I think you're supposed to side with Bashir in that Adrienne Barbeau was a great character.
But even he said was that she would easily sign in a peace treaty with the Dominion.
That's what. Yeah.
If she thought so, that is for the good of the war they're currently fighting.
Right.
Which is the same. That is just that's literally the same thing that Sisko was working against in Pale Moonlight. So it is. I mean, I think it's completely re-asking the question.
I mean, it's not she could possibly do that. Yeah. I mean, but it's not like if we didn't do this, we would lose the war. Like, it's not set up in such stark terms as it is in the Pale Moonlight. It's more of like we're more willing to just, instead of for survival.
So it's the surety of the outcome. Is it the surety of the outcome that's the moral break?
Well, yeah, because you only do it as a last resort. You don't do it as everyday praxis just to get the most advantageous position in every situation. You don't live like that. But when you're
and that is an argument. I just think it's pretty weak argument against what he's saying.
That's a glib answer and a cheap way.
I don't know if I agree. It's weak.
But I mean,
because
I mean, that's a different opinion to me. It seems like a weaker argument than.
All
right.
But I mean, I think that there's, I don't know. It's not like a problem that this show doesn't answer the question. I'm just wondering at this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The Bellerophon is the ship with all the people.
It's the only other time you see a whatever the fuck a Voyager is.
Oh, right, yeah.
Type ship on the show. In fact, I don't even think in one shot they didn't scrub the letters off.
Oh, really? Did it say Voyager?
And the reason they did that is because Ronald D. Moore was trying to help them save money, and he just wanted to shoot the whole thing on the Voyager set, which is what they did.
Okay.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. Except for the final scene at the council where Keanu Reeves' dad from Bill and Ted sentenced Adrienne Barbeau to death. The head of the Romulan council was Keanu Reeves' dad in Bill and Ted. Which means
that set looked almost like a set from Bogus Journey.
Oh, it does. And this cast has two Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey actors, and William Sadler and the dad, him.
Oh, right. Yeah. Death himself.
Mm-hmm.
He's reprising his role as Death. Did you guys know that?
I think both of them are reprising their roles, so they get to come together again, these two cast members.
William Sadler played Clyde Barrow's dad in the Bonnie and Clyde movie I watched on Netflix with.
Oh, really? Is that the one with Emile Hirsch with Speed Racer?
No. This is you never actually see Bonnie and Clyde, and it's
about the
Kevin Costner and Woody Harrelson.
Yes,
where these two old Texas Rangers have been tasked with finding Bonnie and Clyde.
Sadler's in that.
It's a Netflix movie. It is. Not
as good as Wandering Earth.
Well, I could go on about it. I'm not gonna.
I'm sleeping on my cousin's couch on Saturday night, and we're left the television on, and I start seeing ads for season 2 of a Kevin Costner show I've never fucking heard of.
Oh, Yellowstone.
Yellowstone.
Yeah.
Oh, that show did like top ratings since season
Yeah, that's a
one.
bonkers show.
It was
That's
the biggest hit the Paramount Network ever had.
People love that show.
Yeah, it was the Paramount Network we were watching.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's got that horrible actress from
Used to be Spike TV.
True Detective season 2 as the female lead.
Oh. Yeah, that show's huge.
Where are we on this? Are we at the were we rewatching meter yet, or final thoughts?
I think we are. Yeah. I think Sloan gets zapped and disintegrated, but not really, and he shows up and yeah. No. And then you have the moral question scene at the end. But yeah, we're done. I think we've talked. Yeah, we can move on to the rewatch.
All right.
Hit it, James. What would you think?
I mean, I didn't hate this episode. Other than it, I mean, I think I probably like spy movies more than you, Hugh. You're right that I would rather them be doing Sisko and team episodes. But again, it's another one actor goes away for a while. I don't know. I'd give it a 5, 6. I'll give it a 6.
Yeah, I'll give it a 7.
Yeah, I'd probably give it a 4. Mm-hmm. Like, it's watchable. It's just nothing I'm interested in.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But if it was on, you know.
If Sadler was worse, if they had gotten this good actor, and this stuff could be fucking horrible.
Imagine if they, instead of Sadler, they had the guy that played Duran in that Silence of the Lambs episode.
Ooh, yeah, this is very, very close to being bad, like unwatchable with a different actor.
Yeah. Yeah.
Brad Dourif would have made the role fun too.
Oh yeah,
he makes every
goddamn good.
He gets on Voyager, I believe.
Yes.
Oh great.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
He plays a serial killer. He does play a serial killer on Voyager, doesn't he?
Usually plays. He plays a serial killer.
On everything.
On the Silence of the Lambs episode, that rip-off episode that X-Files does, he plays the Hannibal Lecter.
Okay.
You guys want to guess what the IMDb people think of this episode?
7.5.
I'll go 7.8.
They fucking love this episode.
I was about to say, I wasn't sure if it was
974 votes, and it's at 8.4.
Wow,
this is one of the highest rated people. They have their. This is Ashton Kutcher as Steve Jobs. I think people
love their smart face, or
they love their smart face.
Yeah.
Instead of being vexed by what does this show actually think.
Well, I think
what's the viewpoint. I think most people see this and be like, "This is so. Yes, these are good questions. Yes, these are good questions."
They're not treating me like a kid anymore. They're asking the tough, and that's definitely what I liked about it in 2005. This show's asking the tough questions, man. We're not fucking snowflake babies. This is the real world.
Right.
It's dark and shit's weird and complicated.
Right,
and
but now it's like, well, every time I read the news, my face wants to explode and with dark, complicated.
Yeah, I mean, it's not Zack Snyder. It's not Batman versus Superman here, but
I think morally it is.
More so than you get in
I
Star
think
Trek.
definitely morally it is.
I don't think it is.
I think it's definitely thinking. Dude,
it's not. What is that name? Why did you say that?
Well, it's not
name?
stupid, but it's minding the same moral ground.
That's what I'm saying. It's not stupid like that movie.
Well, I mean, they got stupid episodes in here, but yeah, I mean.
Oh, don't get me. Yeah. They do, but they're a different kind of stupid than.
Yes.
Why did you say that name?
Yes, I do think it views like we always often say that Zack Snyder liked The Watchmen for the wrong reasons, and that's evident in his movie.
Yeah.
I think maybe the edgy thing that gravitated him to what he saw in The Watchmen is Ira Stephen Bear is sort of he gets sort of distracted by that same whiff of Snatch.
Yeah. I would have loved some of Grandma's peach tea in this.
Yeah, that is confoundingly dumb. But yes, nothing here is that confoundingly dumb.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right, well, it's got that going for it.
Yeah, well, I guess we were tougher on this episode. I mean, I didn't mean to be.
All right, well, what about next week, guys?
Next week starts the shit, man. We are in the shit.
Oh, yeah.
Penumbra, and it starts the 10-part series. And
Yeah, next episode is where we really start. Basically, next episode kicks off a well, maybe or maybe not, but you could almost see as a modern season of television of only 10 episodes telling a story.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure it probably won't do that as well as I've been talking it up for 3 or plus years, but we'll see, won't we?
Yeah, I'm really interested in this. I mean, I'm really interested in what I think of these next episodes because I remember these more than I remember these cover. I mean, that says something about the episodes the slog we just kind of came through. But like, I didn't remember any of this shit. But I remember these episodes, you know?
Right. Yeah. When this was a Section 31, I was like, oh, we're going to learn something about Odo in this episode. Nope. Nope, not at all.
Yeah.
Spoilers, I guess. But
you get no spoilers.
All right. You want to outro us then, Wade?
And I do know that I don't think I'll like the Kai Wynn stuff. I'm laying down a marker, but I am going to remember. I don't remember loving that stuff.
Right.
Oh, I know I do.
Yeah, so give us a call, 917-408-3898. You know the drill there. We want to hear what you think. Follow us. Go to kickersofels.com, Kickers Podcast at Twitter. But then also, most of all, I'll love you the most of all, Scarecrow. If you go to the Patreon at patreon.com/kickersofels and chip in, support us, and we'll give you, and there's all sorts of other audio content that we have over there for you to check out to give you something back too. So, yeah, do that.
All right. Well, that wraps it up for this week and another episode of Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Well, we hope you come back next week as we talk about
Are you whipping out your Walter Brennan? Yeah, come on back now, you hear?
So that sounds like, huh? Come back next week and as we go through another episode of Star Trek Deep Space Nine. For Wade, James, and Hugh, 3 to beam out.
The book the world could not lay down now stands with the great motion pictures of all time. Jean le Carre's magnificent best-selling novel, The Spy Who Came In From the Cold.
What the hell do you think spies are?
I don't even know how to end this one, but there you go. Help these assholes out, I guess. Or don't. Nobody can make you do anything. Don't listen to those other podcasts who tell you differently.